The morning light on Valoria Prime looked different today. Instead of the soft blue glow that usually painted the crystal cities, there was an ugly orange fire spreading across the sky. Elder Subin stood on the highest tower of the Great Harmony, watching her world burn. The Valorians had never seen war before. Their tall, crystal-like bodies shimmered with fear as they moved through the streets below. Their usual beautiful songs had turned into frightened whispers. The music that normally filled their cities was gone, replaced by the terrible sound of explosions in the distance. Subin touched the communication crystal with her long, pale fingers. The stone hummed with power as she prepared to send a message across the stars. She had to try one more time. Someone in the galaxy had to help them. "Please," she whispered into the crystal. Her voice carried pain and desperation. "This is Elder Subin of Valoria Prime. Our world is under attack. The Krex Dominion has come with their warships. They are destroying our cities and killing our people. We have no weapons. We have no armies. We need help. Please, anyone who can hear this message, help us." The crystal glowed brighter as her words traveled through space at the speed of light. The message would reach dozens of worlds across the galaxy. Surely someone would come. Far away, on the advanced world of Altair 7, President Cole 9 received the message in his office high above the metal city. He was a tall gray being with 4 arms and glowing blue eyes. His computer brain quickly calculated the numbers. "Risk assessment complete," his assistant reported. "Valoria Prime offers minimal strategic value. Krex Dominion military strength is significant. Recommended action, ignore the transmission." Cole 9 nodded his large head. "Agreed, delete the message. We have our own interests to protect." The message also reached the war-loving Centauri Federation. General Vex sat in his command center, surrounded by screens showing their latest military exercises. His red skin was covered in battle scars, and his eyes burned with the desire for combat. Another weak species asking for help, he growled to his officers. "The Valorians never developed weapons. They never learned to fight. They are useless to us. The Krex can have them," his officers agreed quickly. The Federation only helped worlds that could offer them something in return. Valoria Prime had nothing they wanted. In the ancient halls of the Archeon Empire, the message played before a council of beings so old they remembered the birth of stars. Their white robes moved like smoke as they discussed the plea. "The Valorians are children," said the eldest among them. "They sing pretty songs and grow crystal flowers. They have nothing to teach us. Let them learn the hard lessons of the galaxy on their own." The council voted without emotion. Another species would live or die, and they did not care which. Meanwhile, the message continued its journey through space. It passed by trade worlds where merchants counted their profits. It reached scientific stations where researchers focused on their experiments. Everywhere the signal went, the response was the same: "Not our problem, but space is vast and radio waves travel far." The message eventually reached a small yellow star in an unremarkable part of the galaxy. The third planet from this star was covered in blue oceans and white clouds. Most galactic civilizations barely knew it existed. Captain Hyunwoo was drinking coffee on the bridge of the Earth Defense Force ship Indomitable. It was just another boring patrol near Jupiter. The coffee was terrible, like always, but it kept him awake during the long, quiet hours in space. "Captain," called Lieutenant So Young from the communication station, "I'm picking up a transmission. It's not from Earth." Hyunwoo put down his coffee cup and walked over to her station. His brown eyes showed interest. "They rarely got messages from other worlds." "Play it," he said. The bridge fell silent as Subin's voice filled the room. Her words were translated by the ship's computer. But the pain in her voice needed no translation. By the time the message ended, every person on the bridge was quiet. "Sir," So Young said softly, "what do we do?" Hyunwoo stared at the screen showing the message details. Valoria Prime was 3 weeks away at maximum speed. The Krex Dominion was known even to Earth as a dangerous enemy. Any ship that went there might not come back. "Send this to Earth Command immediately," he ordered. "Full priority." Back on Earth, Admiral Da-Yun was working late in her office when the message arrived. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that had seen too many wars. She read the translation 3 times before calling an emergency meeting. Within 2 hours, Earth's top military leaders sat around a table in the secure command center. The Valorian message played again, and the room remained silent when it ended. "Gentlemen, ladies," Da-Yun began, "we have a situation. An alien world is asking for help." "Admiral," said General Tae-ho, "our fleet is small. We have maybe 15 ships that could make such a journey. The Krex Dominion has hundreds. Dr. Minho, Earth's top alien expert, spoke up. I've studied the Valorians from the few communications we've had with them. They're peaceful beings. They've never developed weapons because they've never needed them. Their world has no dangerous animals, no wars, no natural disasters. They literally don't understand violence. And now they're facing one of the most violent species in the galaxy, added Commander Yunji. Admiral Da-Yun looked around the table. Has anyone else responded to their call for help? No, ma'am, reported the intelligence officer. Our deep space monitors show no movement from any major power toward Valoria Prime. The room was quiet for a long moment. Everyone understood what that meant. The Valorians would die alone while the galaxy watched and did nothing. Admiral, General Tejo said carefully, we should consider our own position. Earth is still new to galactic politics. We can't afford to make enemies of the Krex Dominion. Da-Yun stood up and walked to the window. Outside she could see the lights of Sol spreading toward the horizon. This world had known war, had known suffering, had known what it meant to fight against impossible odds. Send a message to Valoria Prime, she said without turning around. Tell them help is coming. Ma'am? General Tejo asked. What help? What can we possibly send? Da-Yun turned back to face the room. Her eyes were hard with determination. Everything we have. The message left Earth 6 hours later. It was short and simple. Valoria Prime, this is Admiral Da-Yun of Earth Defense Force. Your call for help has been received. We are coming. Hold on. Across the galaxy, other civilizations intercepted the message and laughed. The humans from the little death world were going to fight the Krex Dominion. It would be over in minutes. But on Valoria Prime, Elder Subin received the message with tears of crystal falling from her eyes. Someone had answered. Someone was coming to help. For the first time since the attack began, she felt hope. The meeting room in Earth Defense Headquarters was packed with worried faces. Admiral Da-Yun sat at the head of the long table, looking at the holographic display showing Earth's entire fleet. The numbers were not encouraging. We have the battleship Sol's Pride, reported Fleet Captain Jae-sung. He was a tall man with scars on his hands from the Mars Wars. 3 destroyers, Busan Defender, Incheon Guardian, and Daegu Valor. 6 corvettes including the Indomitable. 2 supply ships. That's our entire deep space capability. General Tejo shook his head. 15 ships against the Krex Dominion? Our intelligence says they have over 200 vessels in their attack fleet. This is suicide. Dr. Minho pulled up images of the Krex warships on his tablet. The alien vessels looked like giant metal insects with sharp edges and glowing red weapons. The Krex build their ships for overwhelming firepower. They've never faced serious resistance because most species surrender when they see the size of their fleets. What about the Valorians themselves? Asked Commander Yunji. Can they fight back at all? Minho sighed and showed pictures of the crystal beings. They looked beautiful and peaceful, with tall, thin bodies that sparkled in the light. The Valorians evolved on a perfect world. No predators, no diseases, no natural disasters. They've never needed to develop weapons or military tactics. They don't even understand the concept of violence. So they're helpless, said General Tejo. Not helpless, Minho corrected. They have amazing technology for healing and building. Their crystal cities can repair themselves. They can communicate across vast distances using sound waves. But they've never used any of their abilities for war. Admiral Da-Yun studied the fleet display. Each ship represented thousands of trained personnel and billions of dollars. If they sent these ships to Valoria Prime, they might lose everything. Admiral, said Captain Jae-sung quietly, we all know this is probably a one-way mission. The crew should volunteer, not be ordered. Da-Yun looked around the room at the faces of Earth's military leaders. These were people who had fought in the asteroid mining wars, the Mars Rebellion, and dozens of smaller conflicts. They knew what war meant. The galaxy thinks we're just violent primitives from a death world, she said. They call us Deathworlders because Earth is so dangerous compared to their safe planets. Maybe they're right about us being violent, but they're wrong about why we fight. She stood up and walked to the window overlooking the city. We don't fight because we enjoy it. We fight because someone has to. Because sometimes doing the right thing is more important than surviving. General Tejo leaned forward. Admiral, I understand the moral argument, but we have to think about Earth's safety too. If we lose our fleet fighting the Krex, who will protect our home? If we don't fight for others, who will fight for us when our time comes? Dayon asked. She turned back to face the room. Besides, this isn't just about helping the Valorians. This is about showing the galaxy who we really are. Captain Jae-sung nodded slowly. I'll take the Soul's Pride. We can call for volunteers from the other ships. No, Da-eun said firmly. I won't ask anyone to volunteer for a suicide mission, but I will ask them to volunteer to save an entire species from extinction. Within 6 hours, every ship in Earth's deep space fleet had full volunteer crews. Word spread quickly through the military bases. Soldiers, pilots, engineers, and medics all stepped forward. Some were veterans of Earth's wars. Others were young recruits who had never seen combat. All of them understood they might not come home. Lieutenant Soo-jin was one of the corvette pilots who volunteered. She was small and quick, with steady hands perfect for flying in asteroid fields. Her ship, the Taekwondo, was old but reliable. Why are you doing this? Her friend asked as Soo-jin packed her gear. You don't know these aliens. You've never even seen a Valorian. Soo-jin looked at the picture of Valoria Prime on her tablet. The crystal cities were beautiful, like something from a dream. Maybe that's exactly why I have to go. They've never hurt anyone. They're dying just because they're different. Meanwhile, Major Sung-min was selecting his Marine unit for ground operations. His soldiers were tough men and women who had trained in Earth's harshest environments. They could fight in burning deserts, frozen mountains, and poisonous swamps. Listen up, he told his assembled troops. This mission is different from anything we've done before. We're not fighting to conquer or destroy. We're fighting to protect. The Valorians are civilians, all of them. They don't have armies or weapons. If we can get down to their planet, our job is to keep them safe. Sergeant Boram raised her hand. Sir, what if we can't win? Sung-min looked at his soldiers. Many of them were young, barely out of training. Others were veterans with gray hair and old wounds. All of them were ready to die for people they had never met. Then we make sure our deaths mean something, he said simply. Dr. Minho spent the preparation time studying everything known about Valorian technology. If Earth's forces were going to help these aliens, they needed to understand how Valorian systems worked. Their cities are alive, he explained to the ship captains in a final briefing. The buildings are grown from crystal that can heal itself and respond to sound. The Valorians control everything through harmonic frequencies. If we can protect their harmonic centers, they might be able to fight back in ways the Kreks don't expect. Admiral Dayoon watched the final preparations from the command center. Earth's entire deep space fleet was preparing to jump to hyperspace. The ships looked small compared to the vast emptiness of space, but they carried something the larger galactic powers had forgotten, the willingness to sacrifice for strangers. Admiral, reported the communications officer, we're receiving messages from other Earth colonies. Mars Base, Europa Station, the Belt Miners, they're all sending support messages for the fleet. Dayoon smiled for the first time in days. Put them through. The main screen filled with faces from across Earth's small colonial empire. Miners from the asteroid belt, scientists from Europa, farmers from Mars, all of them had messages for the fleet heading to Valoria Prime. Bring our aliens home safe, said an old miner with hands black from asteroid dust. Show them what Earth is made of, called a young scientist from Europa. Make us proud, whispered a farmer's child from Mars. Captain Jae-sung's voice came over the fleet communication system. All ships, this is Soul's Pride. Prepare for hyperspace jump. We're going to bring some aliens home. As the ships disappeared into hyperspace, Earth fell silent. Across the planet, people watched the news and waited. Their small fleet was heading into the unknown to fight an enemy that had never been defeated. But Earth had something the rest of the galaxy had forgotten. Earth remembered what it meant to fight for those who couldn't fight for themselves. And sometimes that was enough. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Valoria system. Captain Jae-sung stood on the bridge of Soul's Pride, staring at the main screen in horror. Valoria Prime was surrounded by enemy ships. The Kreks Dominion fleet was massive. Huge black warships floated around the planet like hungry sharks. Their hulls were covered in spikes and weapon ports that glowed red in the darkness. Some of the ships were over 1 kilometer long, dwarfing the largest human vessel. Count them, Jae-sung ordered quietly. Sir, reported Lieutenant Hai-jin from the sensor station, I'm reading 212 enemy vessels, 47 battleships, 89 cruisers, and 76 support ships. The bridge was silent. Every human in the fleet could see the numbers on their screens. 200 enemy ships against 15 human vessels. The odds were worse than anyone had imagined. "Sir," called the communications officer, "the planet is burning. The Kreks are bombarding population centers." On the main screen, they could see the crystal cities of Valoria Prime. What had once been beautiful towers of living crystal were now broken ruins. Fires burned across the continents, and massive craters marked where Kreks weapons had hit. Admiral Vectar commanded the Kreks fleet from his flagship, the Death's Edge. He was a large creature with black skin and 4 arms, each ending in sharp claws. His red eyes glowed with satisfaction as he watched another Valorian city fall. "Admiral," reported his sensor officer, "unknown ships have entered the system. Small vessels, primitive design." Vectar looked at the display showing the human fleet. The ships were tiny compared to his warships. They looked like insects trying to challenge dragons. "How many?" he asked. 15 ships, Admiral. They're broadcasting identification signals. They claim to be from something called Earth." Vectar laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Earth? I've never heard of it. Some minor species trying to play hero. Ignore them unless they interfere. They'll run when they see our power." But Captain Jae-sung had no intention of running. He opened communication channels to all human ships. "This is Soul's Pride to all vessels," he said calmly. "We knew the odds when we came here. Our mission hasn't changed. We're here to save the Valorians and stop the Kreks. Follow my lead and trust your training." Lieutenant Sujin sat in the cockpit of her corvette Taekwondo, watching the massive enemy fleet. Her hands were steady on the controls, but her heart was beating fast. She had trained for combat in the asteroid fields around Earth, dodging rocks and debris at high speed. Now she would use those skills against alien warships. "All right, girl," she whispered to her ship. "Let's show them what Earth pilots can do." Captain Jae-sung studied the enemy formation on his tactical display. The Kreks ships were arranged in a standard bombardment pattern, with the largest vessels positioned to rain fire on the planet below. They clearly weren't expecting a real fight. "This is our advantage," he told his officers. "They think this is just another easy conquest. They're not ready for a battle." He opened the fleet channel again. "All ships execute Soul maneuver. Small and fast ships target their engines and weapons. Large ships draw their fire. Let's see how they handle real combat." The human fleet split into 2 groups. The corvettes and destroyers accelerated toward the enemy at maximum speed, while Soul's Pride moved to engage the largest Kreks battleships. Admiral Vectar watched the human ships approach with amusement. "They're actually attacking us. How amusing. All ships destroy these insects." The space around Valoria Prime erupted in weapon fire. Red Kreks plasma beams lanced out toward the human ships, but the smaller vessels were already moving in evasive patterns. Sujin piloted her corvette between 2 massive Kreks cruisers, her ship's hull armor sparking as enemy fire barely missed her. "Too slow," she shouted, rolling her ship to avoid another plasma blast. The Kreks weapons were powerful but designed for bombarding planets, not hitting fast-moving targets. The corvette Taekwondo dove toward a Kreks battleship, firing its mass drivers at the enemy's weapon ports. The tungsten slugs accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed, punched through the alien armor like it was paper. Explosions bloomed along the battleship's hull as its weapons went offline. Meanwhile, the destroyer Busan Defender engaged 3 Kreks cruisers at close range. Captain Minsu used Earth's military doctrine of aggressive maneuvering, bringing his ship so close to the enemy that their large weapons couldn't track him. "Their ships are built for long-range bombardment," he reported to the fleet. "Get inside their weapon range and they can't hit us." But the human ships were taking damage too. The destroyer Incheon Guardian lost its main engine to a lucky Krek shot and was forced to fall back. The corvette Windrunner was destroyed when it got caught between 2 enemy battleships. On the surface of Valoria Prime, Major Sungmin and his Marines were already at work. They had landed near one of the burning crystal cities and were evacuating Valorian civilians to safer areas. The Valorians were beautiful but fragile beings. Their crystal bodies reflected light in rainbow patterns, but they were clearly not built for war. Many of them were injured, their crystal skin cracked from the bombings. "Easy," Sungmin said gently as he lifted a wounded Valorian child. The being was light as air in his arms, but he could feel it trembling with fear. "We're here to help. You're safe now." Sergeant Boram was leading another evacuation team deeper into the city. The crystal buildings around them were partially collapsed, but they still hummed with a musical sound that was hauntingly beautiful. "Sir," she called over the radio, "the Valorians are trying to tell us something." They keep pointing to the center of the city and making that singing sound. What are they saying? Sung-min asked. Dr. Minho, who had come down with the Marines, was working with his translation equipment. I think they're talking about their harmonic center. It's how they control their technology. If the Kreks destroy it, the city will die completely. Above them, the space battle continued to rage. Captain Jae-sung brought Seoul's Pride into direct combat with Admiral Vektar's flagship. The human battleship was much smaller than Death's Edge, but it was faster and more maneuverable. Target their bridge, Jae-sung ordered. Let's cut off the head of this snake. The two ships exchanged fire at point-blank range. Seoul's Pride shook under the impact of Krek's plasma cannons, but its thick armor held. In return, the human ship's railguns punched holes in the enemy flagship's hull. Admiral Vektar was no longer amused. His fleet was taking unexpected casualties from these primitive aliens. Worse, they were actually fighting back effectively. How is this possible? He roared at his officers. They're using primitive kinetic weapons. Their ships are made of basic metals. Sir, his tactical officer reported nervously. Their ships appear to be built for survival in hostile environments. Their armor is designed to withstand impacts and extreme conditions. And their crews? They fight like they have nothing to lose. Vektar snarled and ordered more ships to engage the humans. But he was beginning to realize that this wouldn't be the easy victory he had expected. These Deathworlders fought like the dangerous planet that had created them. The battle had been raging for 6 hours. Space around Valoria Prime was filled with burning wreckage from both fleets. The human ships were taking heavy losses, but they refused to retreat. Admiral Vektar was furious. His massive fleet was supposed to crush any resistance in minutes. Instead, these primitive humans were actually damaging his ships. 3 of his cruisers were destroyed, and his flagship had hull breaches on 4 decks. Bring in the reserve fleet, he ordered. I want these insects crushed immediately. 50 more Krek's warships dropped out of hyperspace, fresh and ready for battle. The human fleet, already outnumbered 15-1, now faced impossible odds. Captain Jae-sung watched the new enemy ships appear on his screens. Seoul's Pride was badly damaged. 2 of its main guns were offline and fires burned in 3 sections. Around him, his crew worked desperately to keep the ship fighting. Sir, reported Lieutenant Hae-jin, we've lost the Busan Defender. Direct hit to the reactor. No survivors. Jae-sung closed his eyes for a moment. Captain Dongwoo and his entire crew were gone. Good people who had volunteered to save strangers from another world. Sir, the communications officer called. Message from Earth Command. Admiral Da-eun is asking for a status report. Tell her we're winning, Jae-sung said grimly. His officers looked at him in surprise. They were clearly losing the battle. Sir, Hae-jin asked. We came here to save the Valorians, Jae-sung explained. Every civilian we evacuate is a victory. Every minute we keep the Kreks busy is time saved. We're not losing until the last Valorian dies. On the planet's surface, Major Sung-min and his Marines had discovered something amazing. The Valorians weren't just helpless victims. They had abilities that could change everything. Dr. Minho was working with Elder Subin in the ruins of the Harmonic Center. The tall crystal being was trying to explain something important through the translation device. She says their harmonic frequencies can disrupt technology, Minho reported over the radio, but only when they feel safe enough to concentrate. The fear and chaos from the attack is preventing them from using their abilities. What kind of disruption? Sung-min asked. Minho listened to Subin's musical voice. She says they can make machines stop working. Even big machines. But they need many Valorians working together, and they need to feel protected. Sung-min looked around at the frightened crystal beings hiding in the rubble. Many were injured, all were terrified. But if they could work together, how many do they need? He asked. At least 50 working in harmony, Minho translated. And they need someone to protect them while they concentrate. Sung-min made a decision that would change the battle. Gather every Valorian we can find. Bring them to the main harmonic center. We're going to give them the safety they need. While the Marines worked to collect the scattered Valorians, the space battle was reaching its climax. Lieutenant Su-jin's corvette Taekwondo was the last of the small ships still fighting. Her hull was cracked, her weapons were nearly empty, but she kept attacking. She dove between 2 Krek's battleships using her ship's small size to avoid their massive guns. Her last torpedo struck the engine of one battleship, sending it spinning out of control. Come on, she whispered to her dying ship. Just a little more. These people need us, but her luck ran out. A Krex plasma beam caught her corvette in the engine section. The ship exploded in a ball of fire, taking Su Jin and her brave crew with it. Captain Jae Sung saw the explosion on his screen. Another good pilot gone. His fleet was down to 8 ships, all badly damaged. The Krex still had over 200 vessels. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the enemy is preparing for a final assault. They're concentrating their entire fleet against us." Jae Sung looked at his remaining ships. The destroyers Incheon Guardian and Daegu Valor were barely functioning. The corvettes were all destroyed except for one that had lost its weapons. Seoul's Pride itself was a wreck held together by emergency repairs. But on the planet below, something extraordinary was happening. Major Sungmin had gathered 67 Valorians in the main harmonic center. The crystal beings stood in a circle, their bodies beginning to glow with inner light. Elder Subin stood at the center, her voice rising in a song unlike anything the humans had ever heard. "They're beginning the harmony," Dr. Minho explained, his voice filled with wonder. "But they need absolute protection. Any fear will break their concentration." Sungmin deployed his marines in a defensive ring around the Valorians. Sergeant Boram set up heavy weapons to cover the approaches. Every soldier knew their job: protect the singers at all costs. The Valorian song grew stronger. Their crystal bodies pulsed with light and rhythm with their voices. The sound was beautiful beyond description, but it was also powerful. The humans could feel it in their bones. High above, Admiral Vector was preparing his final attack when something went wrong. His ship's computers began flickering. Weapons systems shut down randomly. Navigation failed and restarted repeatedly. "What's happening?" he roared at his technical officers. "Unknown interference, Admiral. All our systems are being disrupted by some kind of harmonic frequency." "It's coming from the planet." Across the Krex fleet, the same thing was happening. The advanced alien technology was failing as the Valorian song reached into space. Weapons powered down, engines stuttered, life support systems flickered. Captain Jae Sung saw his chance. "All ships attack now. Their systems are failing." The remaining human vessels, running on simpler technology that wasn't affected by the harmonic disruption, pressed their attack. Seoul's Pride fired everything it had at the disabled Krex ships, but Jae Sung knew this was only temporary. Eventually, the Krex would adapt or find a way to stop the Valorian song. The human fleet was still outnumbered and outgunned. He made the hardest decision of his life. "All ships, this is Seoul's Pride," he broadcast on all frequencies. "I'm going to ram the enemy flagship. Continue the mission. Protect the Valorians." "Captain, no!" Lieutenant Heejin protested. "There has to be another way." Jae Sung smiled sadly at his young officer. "Sometimes the only way to win is to sacrifice everything for what matters most. Take care of the crew." He sealed the bridge and set Seoul's Pride on a collision course with Admiral Vector's flagship. The ship's engines, damaged but still functional, pushed the battleship to maximum speed. "For Earth," Jae Sung shouted as his ship accelerated toward Death's Edge. "For Valoria! For doing what's right!" The two massive ships collided in an explosion that lit up the entire system. Seoul's Pride and Death's Edge were both destroyed instantly, taking their crews with them. But the sacrifice worked. With their flagship gone and their system still being disrupted by the Valorian song, the Krex fleet began to retreat. They had never faced an enemy willing to die for strangers. On the planet below, Elder Subin felt the death of the brave human captain. Tears of crystal fell from her eyes as she continued to sing, keeping the harmonic disruption active until the last Krex ship fled the system. The battle was over. Valoria Prime was saved, but the victory had come at a terrible price that would be remembered across the galaxy. 3 days after the battle, the surviving human ships floated in orbit around Valoria Prime. The beautiful crystal planet was scarred but alive. The Krex Dominion had retreated to lick their wounds, leaving behind the wreckage of their failed invasion. Commander Eunji stood on the bridge of the damaged destroyer Incheon Guardian. She was now the senior officer of what remained of Earth's fleet. Of the 15 ships that had come to Valoria Prime, only 5 were going home. 10 ships and over 3,000 brave souls would stay here forever. "Ma'am," reported Lieutenant Young-ho from Communications, "we're receiving a message from Earth. Admiral Da-un wants a full report." Yoonji looked out at the crystal cities below. The Valorians were already beginning to repair their world. Their living crystal buildings were slowly growing back, healing the wounds left by Krex weapons. It was beautiful and sad at the same time. "Tell the Admiral we completed the mission," she said quietly. "Valoria Prime is free." The news of Earth's victory spread across the galaxy faster than light. Every major civilization received reports of the impossible battle. The tiny human fleet had defeated the mighty Krex Dominion and saved an entire world. President Cole 9 of Altair 7 stared at the battle reports in disbelief. His computer brain ran the numbers again and again, but the result was always the same. The humans had won. "How is this possible?" he asked his advisors. "Our calculations showed the humans had less than 1% chance of success." "The humans didn't fight like we expected," his military advisor explained. "They used tactics we've never seen. They sacrificed their ships to protect civilians. They worked with the Valorians instead of trying to control them." Cole 9 was quiet for a long time. His logical mind struggled to understand why the humans had risked everything for strangers. "Send a message to Earth," he finally said. "Tell them Altair 7 wishes to open diplomatic relations." General Vex of the Centauri Federation was having similar thoughts. His red skin was pale as he watched video recordings of the battle. Human Marines carrying Valorian children to safety, human pilots ramming their ships into enemy vessels, human soldiers dying to protect alien civilians. "This changes everything," he told his officers. "We thought the humans were just another violent species. But they don't fight for conquest or glory. They fight for others." "Should we contact them, General?" asked his aide. Vex nodded slowly. "Send an envoy to Earth. The Federation wants to learn more about these Deathworlders." Even the ancient Archeon Empire was stirring. In their timeless halls, the elder beings discussed the human victory with something approaching respect. "Perhaps we were wrong about these young ones," said the eldest among them. "They show a wisdom we had not expected. Courage without cruelty, strength used for protection rather than conquest." But the biggest changes were happening on Valoria Prime itself. Elder Subin stood in the rebuilt Harmonic Center, surrounded by her people. The Valorians had learned something important from their human saviors. "We can no longer live as we did before," she told the assembled Valorians. "The galaxy is dangerous and there are predators who will attack the innocent. We must be ready to protect ourselves and others." Dr. Minho, who had stayed on Valoria Prime to help with the recovery, was amazed by what he saw. The peaceful Valorians were learning to use their abilities for defense. Their harmonic powers, once used only for healing and building, were being adapted to disable enemy weapons. "They're not becoming violent," he reported to Earth in his daily messages. "They're becoming guardians. They want to protect other peaceful species like themselves." The Valorians proposed something that had never existed in the galaxy before: the Guardian Protocol. It was a mutual defense treaty for species that chose peace but were willing to fight to protect the innocent. Earth was the first to sign the treaty. Within months, dozens of other worlds joined. Species that had been ignored or bullied by the major powers found hope in the alliance between humans and Valorians. Meanwhile, the survivors of the battle were returning home as heroes. Commander Unji stood on the bridge of Incheon Guardian as Earth appeared on the main screen. She had left as part of a desperate rescue mission. She was returning as the leader of a historic victory. "Welcome home, Commander," came Admiral Daeun's voice over the radio. "The whole system is waiting to honor you and your crews." But the real honor went to those who didn't come back. Captain Jae Sung, Lieutenant Soo-jin, Major Sung Min's Marines who died defending the Valorian singers, and thousands of others who gave their lives for strangers. Earth built a monument to them in the center of Geneva. It was made of crystal gifted by the Valorians, singing softly in harmonies that could be heard across the city. The names of every human who died at Valoria Prime were carved into the crystal in letters of light. Ambassador Ji-hyun arrived at Valoria Prime 6 months after the battle. She was Earth's first official representative to an alien world. The Valorians greeted her with songs of welcome that brought tears to her eyes. "Your people saved us," Elder Subin told her through the translation device. "But more than that, they taught us who we could become. We were children before, innocent and helpless. Now we are guardians, ready to protect the innocent across the galaxy." The ceremony dedicating the memorial was attended by representatives from dozens of worlds. Even some Krex came, their heads bowed in what might have been respect or shame. The galaxy had learned that the humans from Earth were not just another violent species. Dr. Minho, now Earth's permanent ambassador to Valoria Prime, spoke at the ceremony. "The galaxy called us Deathworlders because we came from a dangerous planet. They thought that made us dangerous too. They were wrong. Our dangerous world didn't make us killers. It made us protectors. He looked up at the crystal spires reaching toward the stars. Earth taught us that life is precious because it's fragile. That civilization is worth defending because it's easily lost. That sometimes the most important thing you can do is stand between the innocent and those who would harm them. The memorial sang softly in the evening light, its crystal voices carrying the names of the dead across the city. Each name represented someone who chose to fight for strangers, who died far from home so that others might live. As night fell on Valoria Prime, new distress calls echoed across the galaxy. But now they were answered differently. Species across the stars remembered the humans who came when no one else would. They remembered that sometimes the most powerful force in the universe wasn't technology or numbers. It was the simple decision to help when help was needed. The Guardian Protocol grew stronger every year. More species joined, more worlds found protection, and more innocents lived because someone was willing to stand guard. The galaxy had learned that Deathworlders weren't dangerous because they came from dangerous worlds. They were dangerous to those who threatened the innocent. And in a universe full of predators, sometimes that was exactly what the galaxy needed. Elder Subin often stood by the memorial in the evenings, listening to its crystal song. Each note carried the memory of a human who had chosen to save her people. She would never forget their sacrifice, and neither would the galaxy. The stars were no longer silent when innocents called for help. Someone would always answer. The Deathworlders had made sure of that.